Converted man here?
It's the converted man.
Converted man here. Have you ever had one of those moments of clarity where you just go, wow, I know exactly what this is about? If you haven't had one of those moments, then hopefully you can imagine how one of the moments that I said might feel like. And in fact, I dare say you might have that sensation upon reading the title of this video. I read it, and I had this overwhelming sensation, feeling of crystal clarity. I knew exactly what this video was going to hold in store for me. I knew without a shred of doubt in my fiber of being that everything in this video was going to be something that was going to irritate me and also have logical fallacies in it. I knew all that just from the title of the video. Now, that's special knowledge, but I challenge you that you too will probably have that moment of clarity, illogical as it may be. Are you ready? Because here comes the title. Hold on to your seats. Atheists are primitive in their thinking. I think I heard somebody's head just explode. Wow. Sorry about that, but I warned you. Let's begin this train wreck of a video, shall we?
Dr. Bahnsen, may we now have your 10-minute opening statement?
Okay, so I have to note that the video title is not what the video is. The video is a debate, you see. But they titled the video that other thing. Why? Clickbait, I guess? Don't know. Anyways, on with the debate. Let's see what this guy's got.
I have a great appreciation for my opponent's feistiness, that he wants to continue to show, he has this sharp tongue and can issue these challenges to God and so forth. But I am still waiting for proof of the kind of, things that he just throws out there on his own authority, that there can't be a hell because of this reason, he can superimpose his values and so forth. I want you to notice something about what's going on in the debate here tonight. In the first place, Mr. Tabish has not yet understood the challenge that's been directed to him. He has very little time left to deal with it. I hope that he'll use it when it does come. In my opening remarks, I pointed out that the inductive principle needs a rational foundation.
So, let's notice a few things. This is an opening statement, which is kind of weird that the opponent here has decided to begin to rebuttal his opponent's opening statement and also say that his opponent doesn't have that much time. Sure he does. He has however much time is allotted to him to rebuttal your opening, which shouldn't include a rebuttal to his opening because you went second. That's a formal fallacy. Put the formal fallacy counter up. Yeah, I know you're mad at me. I haven't used you in a long time. Just please put the numbers there. Thank you very much. Okay. So that's a formal fallacy. He doesn't. You don't do that. You don't get to rebuttal your opponent during your opening because obviously the second person would always have the advantage and it's supposed to be a fair platform. Oh well, screw that. It's okay. Whatever. Anyway, so he's waiting for his opponent to prove his assertions. Okay, fine. But why not start by just arguing your side? Because that's what you should be doing right now instead of eating your time by rebuttaling his stuff, which you shouldn't be doing. But, just the rules of logic. Screw those. Whatever.
And that we use the inductive principle when we reason, when we engage in discourse, when we do anything to make our experience intelligible. Everything Mr. Tabish has been saying tonight, all of his reasoning, all of his argumentation, fallacious or not, all of it has assumed the inductive principle that there's a uniformity in nature. That is not the design argument. So I hope that he gets to the debate tonight and catches up with what's going on, because no one is arguing the teleological argument tonight. Your opponent is arguing that those who argue against the teleological argument and those who argue in favor of it, those who argue against God and those who argue for God, everyone who argues assumes the uniformity of nature and the inductive principle, and we haven't been given a rational foundation for that. In fact, the inductive principle is contrary to the atheist view of the universe. So atheists continue to reason, continue to draw on past experience and to draw conclusions from past connections and that sort of thing, and yet they have no basis for believing that they have the right to do that.
Yes, I know that you're sad, logical fallacy counter, because I haven't used you for so long. I'm really, really sorry. Please forgive me. I'm using you right now, so just put the numbers on the screen. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have an irrelevancy here. The uniformity of nature and the inductive principle. Everybody assumes that. And that's what I'm arguing, you see. But you don't have any justification for that, but I do, because God. But that's not the debate, so it's completely irrelevant. The debate, according to that first black screen here, is, does God exist? But I guess his opponent has decided that that's not what the debate is, and so he's like trying to make fun of his opponent / potentially poison the well by saying, oh, you need to catch up here. That's not the debate. The debate is actually on the uniformity of nature and the deductive principle, which everybody has to assume. But see, you don't have any justification for it, but I do. So that's another formal fallacy, shifting the topic of debate. Another formal fallacy there. But also an informal fallacy because it's completely and utterly irrelevant. So what if he can't justify it? What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter if he can justify it or not. He doesn't have to justify it. If it works, and we all know that it works, or it's been agreed upon that it works, or we can demonstrate that it works, then why in the world do we need to justify that it works? Well, show me the DNA evidence really works. Okay, here's this long, lengthy explanation of how it works, blah, 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 but the topic was on, does God exist? Yeah. No thanks. I think that we'll just say no, DNA evidence works, and go on from there. I don't need to justify that it works. I don't need to do that. That's not what I'm doing here. But oh well, screw that. Also the straw man of, this doesn't fit into the atheist view. Atheist, what view? What is the atheist? There is no atheist view. There is no atheism view of reality. Atheism is not a worldview. It's not a religion. It dictates nothing, prescribes nothing, demands nothing. The only thing that it does is describe a single position on a single question. The question is, do you believe in God? The answer is no. That's what makes you an atheist. Period. Nothing more, nothing less. You can't assume that somebody's a naturalist or a materialist because they're an atheist. You cannot assume that they're a skeptic because they're an atheist. You can only know for sure that they don't believe in God based on the definition of atheism alone. And everything else and anything else that you add on to that is nothing more than a straw man.
I'm just waiting for an explanation. It hasn't been given. When you appeal to sensory experience, you beg the question. By the way, better atheist philosophers than Mr. Tabish have already pointed that out. Hume and Bertrand Russell both pointed out you can't appeal to experience to prove the uniformity of nature. Why? Because the appeal to experience already assumes the uniformity of nature.
And Stephen Hawking said anything that happened before the Big Bang could not affect what happened after. Therefore, God could not have created the Big Bang. I win. Good game. Oh, right. Appealing to authority means diddly and squat in informal arguments. And that's why. It doesn't matter who said what that sounds like or is agreeing with your position. In an essay, sure, that matters. But we're not doing an essay. We're doing a debate. And in a debate, it doesn't matter who said what, and I don't care. It's an appeal to authority. So what? Now, what's interesting, though, is let's look at that. Okay, it's a circular argument that we have to appeal to our senses to observe reality. Okay, and it's circular because we're using our own sensory inputs, which we could very well be flawed, and we would never know unless someone else told us. But then we could all be brains in a vat, and we would never know that. Da, 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 da. Okay, great. All that's fine and dandy, but all that really argues for is further skepticism, not blind belief in things. What you're really doing here is arguing that we should be more skeptical of things, not less. And faith is all about suspending skepticism and doubt in order to just believe that things are true. We might not know why nature is uniformity to it, and that might be, in logical terms, a fallacy. Yet science continues to operate in spite of the fact that logically it shouldn't work. There's no informal logic principle that dictates that this is a thing that should work this way every time. But reality doesn't care about that because reality is the way it is. And perhaps we need to readapt some of our logic wording to better fit the scientific principle within it. Or perhaps we'll continue to do what we do in informal logic and kind of just ignore science and be like, yeah, science is that thing over there. We're doing informal logic, which is way different, way over here. And the moment that we have to check in with reality, that's when we'll turn to science because it's the best thing that does that. But he's arguing against himself. He's making skepticism a better position than faith. I'm pretty sure that's not what he wanted to do, but that's what he's doing.
Now, as you consider the background worldviews of atheism or Christian theism,
Atheism is not a world view. Why is this straw man repeated throughout apologetics? Well, if I was to guess, I would say that I think that my homework I gave you, which only some of you even attempted, by the way, shame on you. The Reason for God, Belief in an Age of Skepticism by Timothy Keller, where he says, I recommend that each side look at doubt in a radical new way. Each side. See, I have a worldview, you have a worldview. We're now on sides. Either you're on my side or you're on that guy's side. If atheism doesn't have any worldview, then I have a side and he doesn't. And then I can't get you into rooting for or against a team when there is no team to root against or for. So I have to strawman him and pretend that he has a worldview, even when he doesn't. Atheism, as I said, is a single answer to a single question. Apologetics love to make it into something more paint it into either a religion or a worldview. And my guess is to be able to tribalize and gain team, where if you were honest, you wouldn't be able to do that. There is no atheism worldview. There's no skepticism worldview either, for that matter. All other questions about what I believe or don't believe, you're going to have to ask me as an individual. And my answers will be different than any other atheist and or skeptic that you could ask those questions to.
I want you to observe that the life of the atheist is riddled with inconsistency and thus is exposed as being utterly irrational.
Irrelevant, special knowledge, and non sequitur. It's irrelevant because so what if somebody's life is inconsistent, whatever the bleep that means? I'm not sure that there's any human anywhere at any time that ever lived a consistent life, except for in Christian mythos, Jesus, because he's perfect or whatever. But besides Jesus, who I don't believe in at all, so no, there would be no human that would have a consistent life. So this is completely and utterly irrelevant to point out, well, your life is inconsistent. So what? Even if true, it's irrelevant. Then, of course, we have a special knowledge because everybody is this way. All atheists are that way. What if there was an atheist who lived their life in a consistent manner? And again, I don't know what you mean by inconsistent. Like, what the bleep does that mean? And non sequitur, it just doesn't follow. Nothing you said follows from what you said before. So, no.
Atheists will presuppose human dignity and attend the funeral of a friend or to honor a relative, even a child with Down syndrome. But then they will turn around and argue that man has no dignity, is no different than any other product of evolution, like a snail or a dog or a horse. I don't see how they bring these two things together.
So, appeals to emotion times 2 and straw man. Big, ginormous straw man, as well as composite error, which I'll file under formal foul. Alright, let me just knock out that composite error so that you understand what it is. He said they'll go to a funeral of a friend, they'll go to a funeral even of somebody that has Down syndrome, as if the two things are different in some way, shape, or form, or as if that should be a surprise or weird or whatever. Like, it would be different if he had said something like, they'll go to the funeral of a loved one, they'll go even to the funeral of an animal. But then that would have hurt his later statement of, yet they say that humans have no more dignity than animals. See, some people do go to funerals for animals. So that counterexample would have hurt. But the compositing would have worked. See, saying the same thing twice, which is what he did, so they'll go to this funeral and then they'll go to that funeral, is a composite error. See, saying the same thing twice, going to this funeral and then going to this other funeral, is a composite error. You see, saying that, oh wait, I'm stuck in an infinite loop, quick, move on to the next thing. The 2 times appeal to emotion is obviously going to 2 different funerals, and the straw man is the blatantly disgusting way that he paints the picture of the atheist. Which, I gotta add in poisoning of the well. I really think it fits here. He is definitely poisoning the well. He's trying to stack the favor in his odds so that the odds may be ever in your favor. If he was in the Hunger Games, I'd totally kill him first. Doesn't matter if I'm getting killed next. He's going out first, darn it. Or what was I saying? Alright, so yeah, but straw man. Because, yeah, it's true that humans are no more significant than any other life on this planet. Objectively true. Subjectively, we're not going to act that way because we're social creatures. So we are going to treat humans with more dignity, respect, and protection than other animals. However, there are plenty of laws that protect other animals besides us humans. And animal rights activists are fighting for even more laws to be passed to protect farm animals because the treatment of farm animals is inhumane, which only makes sense if we classify humanity as being an animal. If you wouldn't treat a person like this, don't treat an animal like this. There's peaceful ways to bring a calf out of a truck, and then there's harsh ways. I saw, a documentary where they were four guys are dragging this calf out of the thing, and it's fighting them, and then you can see like when the people that rescue the calf, you can see that they nurse the calf out, and it comes out very gently and very quietly with no struggle on their part, and it only took one person. The time that it took was far less, as well as the rough method. So there's zero reason to use the rough method. It doesn't make sense in any level. It could hurt the people, it could hurt the calf, it takes more time, it takes more energy, it takes more people. The nice way works better. Crowding together all these animals is bad for them and bad for us because we're going to be eating them, and having them free range is better for us and better for them. And perhaps we could talk about consumption in general and how we're overdoing that as a species anyways, and we have to rethink how we do farms, yada yada yada. But certainly there is concern for other animals, even to the point where some people will say that they value other animals higher than us humans, that if they had a choice between saving a human or a dog, they would save the dog. I would save the human personally, but everyone's brain works differently. So we have counter examples to this idea. But the bottom line is this guy is clearly confused about what it means to respect life and death as somebody that doesn't believe in God versus his straw man of his misunderstanding of what that means. You see, I value life because it's the only life I'll ever get. And I'm going to honor those who died, not for them, but for myself and the people that cared for that person.
The atheist will insist that man is nothing more than a complex of biochemical factors controlled by the laws of physics. And yet he kisses his wife and his children when he goes home, as though there is something called love.
Darn those pesky atheists, always telling the truth about reality. I wish they'd just lie about it like the rest of us good theists do and pretend that we're more than what we are. Why do they have to tell us that things are? I don't like it. Yeah. What about love, huh? Yeah. You act like love is real. What about that, stupid atheist? Yes, love is a chemical, so it's real. But but we're more than just that and stuff. Appeal to consequence.
Called love that each of us share in the family. The atheist will argue that in sexual relations, anything goes. There are no moral absolutes. Don't impose your views on others. He'll even defend prostitution.
All Christians everywhere defend slavery because it's in the Bible. Slavery! Oh my word, that's so horrible. Don't you feel so bad for the slaves? Those rotten, disgusting, evil Christians. Okay, so that's a straw man appeal to emotion and poisoning of the well. Which, if I did it now, would be a 2Q. I'd be just as bad as him. But I'm not really doing it. I'm just using it as an example to show how what he said, if flipped, the script would be wrong and they wouldn't accept it. He would reject those things.
But then indignantly condemn child molesters or morally repudiate necrophilia.
Whoa, 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 hold on there now. What's wrong with necrophiliaism? Okay, maybe you could make some sort of medical argument that it's bad for the person doing it. Maybe it's sort of kind of weird. I mean, I don't know what the legal status is. Nobody can really own a corpse, but hey, what's wrong with it? I mean, really, what? What? I mean, the dead person's dead. Okay, so they can't give consent. But if like that was your significant other and in life they would have given consent, and this is like the last time, you want to give them affection, you know, why not? Why is that bad? I don't know. I can't think of any reason. I need some sort of logical argument for that. So, hey, if you got a logically coherent argument against necrophiliaism, post it in the comments. Meanwhile, the other thing that he said, yeah, most people are against that. Okay. But not all people are against it. So, straw man times two. There is nothing inherently wrong with arguing and dissecting and critically analyzing any position at all. Whatever it is up for debate. And the moment that we say, no, you can't talk about it, it's taboo, we need to censor it, is the moment that you've closed off avenues of exploration and discovery. And no matter what our feelings are on any given subject, those feelings are completely and utterly irrelevant. All that matters is the argument valid? Is the argument logically coherent? Is there data? Is there any facts to this matter? What does the stats say? What is the potential benefits? What are the potential harms involved? If we're going to say, oh, no, we can never ever talk about this ever, we have forever locked ourselves out of discovering and understanding aspects of humanity. And yes, these might be dark aspects, these might be, for some, disgusting aspects, but we need to be able to challenge all ideas. And to say that atheists would always defend these ideas isn't necessarily true, because I, as a skeptic, could argue for either of these ideas. And if I did so, I would come ready with some sort of logically coherent argument. Not that I personally would do it. I could do it if I wanted to. I just don't feel like it. But my point remains that both of these are straw men.
You see, the atheist is just a bundle of contradictions. He can't bring his worldview into harmony with itself. He'll suggest that things which happen in the universe happen randomly. It just is that way, arbitrarily. Talk about primitive thinking.
Irrelevant! Straw man and poisoning the well. Relevant. Why? Because it doesn't matter even if the atheist is a bundle of contradictions. How they live their life is independent and irrelevant to what their argumentation might be. Straw man, because there is no worldview in atheism. And of course, poisoning the well, that's primitive thinking. Oh boy, is this just a matter of projection of your own issues onto the atheist opponent that you're fighting against here? That you know that your thinking is primitive, so you're telling him that his primitive thinking is primitive of... Wait a minute, primitive thinking? I thought that you didn't believe in evolution. So you do believe in evolution? I'm not sure. Does this guy believe in it? I don't know. Anyways, so that's what it is. Moving on.
That's far more primitive than anything you can find, even in the time the Bible was written. It just happened.
Lols, roll of the mo, OML, WTF, BBQ sus, BRB, cats on fire. What does that have to do with anything? Nothing, just like what he said. It just has no meaning at all. What he just said is devoid of content. It's not a fallacy, I guess. It's not a formal fallacy. It's not anything. It's just emptiness. Well, okay, it is a straw man. So we'll put that in there because it's a straw man. But isn't it also ridiculous how simple it is to just reductio ad absurdumness and flip it over? Things just are because God made them. Isn't that the same problem with just saying that things just are this way? Which I don't know that anybody has ever said that. This is the way things are. Why? I don't know. How? I don't know. Those are mysteries that I am content to live with. I would love to know the answers, if there are any, to have, but I'm also willing to accept that I might never have an answer, and I'm also willing to accept that there might not be an answer, that literally it just might be this way, and that's just the way it is. There is no deeper meaning or reason behind it. I'm willing to accept that explanation as much as I'm willing to accept the explanation that time travelers did it, aliens did it, it's a giant matrix, we're all brains in vats, or that God did it. Any explanation would be fine. But the explanation must have empirical evidence, a repeatable test, or a logically coherent argument. Otherwise, it's a guess. And I'm not good enough with just guessing at what the answer is. I can know what the answer isn't, but I can't, in this case, know what the answer is. And I'm not going to pretend like I know what the answer is just so I feel better about my place in this universe. Why are things the way they are? I don't know. But they are. Okay, let's move on. Maybe one day we'll figure it out. Maybe we never will. Maybe we'll find out that it was all a giant lobster that pinched reality into existence. I don't know. But until that day comes, which I might not live to see, where we figure it all out, I'm going to be skeptical. Rather than say, oh, this is the answer, I'm going to say, I don't know the answer. Because that's the honest answer. This Nimrod is saying that we're saying that we have the answer, and the answer is, it's just the way it is. That's it. No, I don't think anyone's ever said that. And if I'm wrong, well then point out the person that said that, and I'll tell that person that they're wrong. Because it's not logical to say the answer without some sort of formulation for how you got to that answer. And we certainly don't have that here.
But then he'll turn around and he looks for regularities and law-like explanations of events. He looks for uniformity and predictability in the things that he studies in natural science. You see, the atheist doesn't have a workable worldview.
You know, I'll just fix what you said here for you, so that way we can subtract a fallacy.
You see, the atheist doesn't have a worldview.
There you go, much better. Continue on, please.
He may go on and on autobiographically about how he doesn't like the God of the Bible and doesn't like the doctrine of hell and all that, but he doesn't have a workable worldview in terms of which to reason in the first place.
Dang nabbit, you're screwing it up. Okay, take away the -1. He doesn't deserve it anymore.
To argue at all, and he exposes its weaknesses at every turn in his life. You see, you can claim that there is nothing spiritual, nothing immaterial, nothing abstract and universal, that only concrete particular things exist. You can claim that events are just random, that there's no personal plan or control or purpose in the universe. You can claim that reality amounts to nothing more but matter in motion. But you can't act or reason in that way.
Irrelevant. How one lives their life is completely and utterly independent from their philosophy, ethics, morals, or ideas. Just because we do not act in accordance with X, Y, or Z does not negate that X, Y, or Z could still be true. One example of this is a smoker who gives a speech about the dangers of smoking. And then the student standing up and objecting, but you are a smoker. Well, of course, this is true, and he's admitted that he's a smoker. Well, you're a hypocrite then. Yes, I am. That doesn't negate the argument that I've given. And that's exactly the sort of fallacy that we're seeing in play here.
And as long as Mr. Tabish continues to reason, as long as he continues to assume the uniformity of past experience with what he's saying now, what conclusions he draws scientifically, how he makes his experience intelligible, he's not living in terms of his own assertion about the nature of reality. We have to ask the atheist, why should you be rational? I mean, if man doesn't have a mind, he's just, just has a brain that's subject to the laws of chemistry and physics, then there is no objective reasoning, and there's no freedom, actually, for us to consider evidence in an argument and choose one way or another.
And, of course, our good apologist continues to strawman his opponent as he asks a meaningless question, which I really should up the formal fallacy counter, but I'm not too sure that this debate is taking place after the opening of the opponent, so we're just going to leave it at 3 and call it even. Anyways, he's also got 3 appeals to consequence. If things are this way, if we're just this chemical mind and this, and if we're just this, then this is... reality doesn't care what the consequences are. If we are just those things, and even if that means we don't really have free will, or that we can't help but do what we do, or whatever, then that's the truth. And we're still going to have a society that treats activity like crime as if the person had free will. See, that is an example where the truth of the matter might not be something that we can live by, because although we know and understand and recognize the truth, we still have to live differently in order to maintain order. But that would require thinking on his part. Moving on.
Just like weeds grow, so the mind of man does whatever it does by the laws of physics. We have to ask the atheist, where is the origin of life? On the evolutionary hypothesis, we are led to the irrational view that life spontaneously generated.
Well, we have quite the non sequitur and straw man, as well as... Oh, bleep. Oh, no. I know it's him. I shouldn't answer, but I feel compelled to answer the phone. Excuse me. If you're wearing headphones, this might be a good time to turn down the volume. Hello? Hey, how's it going? Oh, why do you have to yell every single... I told you not to yell anymore. I promise never to yell again! You didn't even finish that sentence before you lied. Yeah, this guy's great. I love him. You know why? 'Cause he tells lies all the time. Yeah. Who else do you love? I love anyone that lies. Oh, okay. So you don't love people that lie? No, I do. Is that a lie? No. But you're outright lie. You have to always lie. No, I don't have to always lie. Lie is a deception. Oh, I'm learning so much about you. You know what else I'd like to learn about you? What's that? Nothing. Knocked over my thing of tax there. Death and tax is the only thing you'd be sure of.
And yet science today, all of biological science, proceeds on the opposite assumption, that spontaneous generation is wrong, as a matter of fact.
I'm not sure to call this an outright lie or a half-truth, because abiogenesis is not my field, and I don't think it's his either.
No matter how much you tinker or work with a cake mix, you're not going to get the cake mix to make a political constitution.
The cake is a lie. Also false analogy.
No matter how much you tinker with the cake mix, you're not going to get it to make a dream of a spring day. Why is that? Because the elements of a cake mix have nothing to do with what we're talking about when we talk about political constitutions and dreams and so forth. These are different kinds of things. Similarly, inorganic matter doesn't, by a mechanical reconfiguration, give rise to organic things. That kind of thinking is mythical. It's going back to the days of alchemy. But that's what the atheist worldview leaves us with.
Isn't it ironic, don't you think? Just a little too ironic, and I really do think that him saying going back to the age of alchemy is hilarious when his beliefs go back to the Bronze Age, which kind of predates alchemy. I mean, alchemy might have also been around during that time as well, so they'd either be the same time or it predates it, or maybe alchemy also goes before it. But like, if you're gonna be like, oh look, it predates, it's like way a long time ago is when your ideas come from, even though they don't, because that's a complete straw man. Yeah, yours as well. Although that would be a 2Q, but still, really magical thinking. I wonder who's really doing that. Yeah.
We don't know why we should be rational. We can't understand the origin of life. On the atheist worldview, why should we think in terms of scientific inference? This is what I keep driving at. If you're a materialist, there is no uniformity in nature. There is no answer to Hume's skepticism, in which case the atheist can't assert anything, even that he doesn't like God.
Wow, what a way to give the logical fallacy counters a run for their money. Outright lie ×2, straw man, meaningless question, which is also a formal fallacy because you're not supposed to ask questions until the Q&A section. Another straw man, oh, materialist, this, blah, 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 whatever. And then another straw man, because atheism doesn't have a worldview! Okay, so yeah, all that, and we're almost done, so here we go.
Why should we be moral in terms of the atheist universe? On a naturalistic principle, there is no right or wrong, there's just might, there's just what happens. You can't find obligatory authority anywhere in the world if it's just matter in motion.
2, strawman, once again, atheism is not a worldview, may or may not be talking about a materialist, and then we have an appeal of consequence. Oh, if it's this way, then this means that, and that's obviously bad. It's amazing how much special knowledge he has about his opponent, isn't it? Should I add +1 for that, or isn't that implied throughout, meaning that there's like a +1 for every utterance of every single word that he says about his opponent? In which case, it's +?mark at this point. Go ahead and put +?mark.
You see, the atheist just cannot answer the tough questions of philosophy. He cannot make intelligible use of his rationality, of scientific inference, of moral obligation. Now, of course, some atheists will say, well, we don't need to answer that. Reality is simply this way.
And this is one ginormous straw man, irrelevancy, and ad hominem. It's a straw man because atheism does not prescribe anything. It is not a world view. Once again, it is not a religion. It does not tell you anything about anything at all other than a single answer to a relatively simple question. Do you believe in God? Yes or no? If you say no, you're an atheist. If you say yes, you're not an atheist. That's it. If somebody says, is there a God? And you say, I don't know. Okay, that could put you in agnostic category. You say, what do you mean by God? Well, here's all these descriptions. No, I don't believe in that God. I'm an atheist in regard to that God now that you've explained it. I might go as far to say that some types of God are impossible, logically speaking. Therefore, I'm what would call a strong atheist against those types of gods, logically contradictive gods. You cannot have an all-merciful and all just God, those two qualities do not equate each other. Mercy means withholding the full force, and justice means giving out the right proportion of punishment, and mercy is withholding that punishment. So you can't be both of those to the maximum levels. They contradict each other. You have to be one or the other. You can't have your cake and eat it too, because as we established, the cake was a lie. So there is no cake. Now, as far as whether or not the atheists can or can't do philosophy, maybe they can, maybe they can't. This is an appeal to their authority or lack thereof, and it's irrelevant because their argument is what matters, not what they can or can't answer. And whatever mysteries of life or mysteries of the universe that are right now unanswered or perhaps unanswerable are also not up to the atheists to address. We have a mystery, and we're content with that mystery, and we owe it to nobody to explain that mystery. That's in the realm of science. Philosophy can't do that. Philosophy wishes it could do science, but it can't. Now you might say, well, science is a subset of philosophy, or science has a philosophy, and that's all well and good, and you can get all irritated about that, but I don't care because science produces results, and it's the only thing that has consistently produced results. Other philosophies have yet to do this, except for perhaps logic. And logic is limited because you still have to check in with reality, which means using science. So, no, I don't have to explain to you anything about anything, nor do I have to justify anything to anyone at any time. And the answer can be, and is quite legitimate, that this is the way things are. We know certain things, and then we run out of information, and we don't know. What is the square root of 9,575.7 and a half? I don't know. I know it's not the number 1. I know it's not the number 100. I know it's not pi, but I have no idea what the answer is. And unless you have a very good calculator, you probably don't either. But just because we don't know what the answer is doesn't mean anything. The worldview of Christianity cannot answer plenty of questions. That doesn't necessarily mean anything either. Just because you can't answer questions doesn't automatically negate your argument. You can't tell me what God is made out of, or how God's power works, or why God can think at all, or where God is located. In fact, it's not located in a where, and how that works, I don't know, but you can't explain any of that. You can't explain miracles because they're beyond the ability of you or anyone else to explain. But that does not negate your worldview or your arguments. Now, in the case of an atheist, they don't necessarily have a worldview. We haven't established what, if any, is their worldview, which would be separate and independent of them being an atheist, because atheism is, in and itself, not a worldview. Although it can be part of one, it is not one by itself. So, we know a lot, but we don't know everything. And openly minded, skeptical, secular, atheistic people tend to admit that they don't know everything. Some of us don't. Some of us screw up because we're all humans and we're all different. So we come in all sorts of different flavors and variety. And so do Christians. And so does everyone else in the entire world. So what makes things interesting, and it also makes things impossible to pin down if you're going to go off of worldview, because you're creating a straw man. You don't know what their worldview is unless you ask, and everyone's thing is going to be slightly different. Now, next up, he's going to just say, well, it's arbitrary to just say things are just the way they are, which is the straw man construct that he's built up, completely irrelevant, and his attack against the person, not the argument that the person gave. I don't know what the argument that the person gave is, But he's not addressing that because I don't hear a single rebuttal.
Basically, what atheists end up saying is that, well, everybody knows nature is uniform. Everybody knows there's moral absolutes. Everybody knows these things.
Oh, yes! I hate this! It is revolting!
Straw man. Straw man, straw man, straw man. Isn't it presuppositionalists who usually say that we know that God exists and we're just suppressing that knowledge deep down because of our sinful nature? Of course, he hasn't said that here. Darn it. Otherwise, it'd be another +1 on the fallacy counter. But still, it's them that usually say that we know stuff, not the other way around. But he's just strawmanning the bleep out of atheists right now. So he can't be bothered to, put up his own argument or anything.
And you know what? On that point, I agree with the atheist. Everybody does know these things. But the problem is they don't comport with atheism. These things that people know very well, the continuing evidence that you need a Christian theistic worldview to make sense out of experience, these things don't comport with atheism.
Everything you just said doesn't comport with reality. I'm giving you a fractal error, which is the same as outright lie. But no, I'm not answering the phone. Quick, go to the next part of the video.
Key philosophical questions are answered by atheists arbitrarily and inconsistently.
Wait. He didn't just do an outright lie. He also did a special knowledge claim and another straw man. And just now, he did a relevancy. So what if atheists aren't consistent with their philosophical answers? That would only be perhaps a legitimate complaint if atheism was a worldview. But to be fair, Christians and Christian philosophers don't have the same philosophies. Within theology, you get different philosophies. So, what's your point? You don't have one. I'm giving you a formal fallacy for failure to give an argument.
In a way which can't make sense out of ordinary human experience and reasoning. And atheists try to hide this gaping defect in their theorizing from themselves, but it's not being hid from you tonight. I want you to consider a parallel. A person who were to come tonight and argue no air exists continues to breathe air, doesn't he, while he argues. And when I point out that if, as he says, no air exists, he couldn't be breathing, it would be intellectually inept for him to respond, no, you're wrong to say my theory implies I couldn't be breathing, because in fact I am breathing.
Appeal to analogy and continual straw man.
You see, he would be so self-deluded that he wouldn't catch the significance of the fact that the facts belie his theory.
Actually, it would be a hypothesis, but continue on with your false analogy.
And the facts, the most common facts of life, inductive reasoning, scientific conclusions, moral judgments, making experience intelligible, belie the theory of atheism.
That's straw man and non sequitur times some number, I don't know, whatever amount of words he said. And I guess fractal error, because everything he said is completely not true. Theory of atheism. Really. Theory of atheism. Okay, moving on.
Intellectually speaking, atheists continue to breathe. I know that. They continue to reason, to be scientific, to make moral judgments. I don't doubt that. But the atheistic view of things would, in theory, make such breathing impossible, would render science arbitrary, logic impossible, and ethics nonsense.
Tor and straw man, and also another formal fallacy of a failure to give an argument. I'm going to just speed up the rest of his stuff so we can just get this over with already.
Atheists work hard to hide this intellectual poverty from themselves. That's why they look up verses in the Bible and try to ridicule things, rather than getting down to the basic issue of, do you have a philosophy of life in terms of which you can reason about anything at all? And they pretend, philosophically speaking, that they're not breathing God's air all the time they're arguing against him. The Apostle Paul in Acts 17 said to the philosophers in ancient Greece, in him, in God, we live and move and have our existence. You see, God is the very atmosphere of our lives.
Thank you, Dr.
He's the
Bahnsen.
intellectual precondition of all of our rationality and all of our morality.
Thank you, Dr. Bahnsen.
Special knowledge is circular argument. It's just let me tell you. I tell you I love you. But I hate your face.
Go home, deconverted man. You're drunk.
Okay, and now for my last little segment here before I wrap up. So, do we have empirical evidence? Nope. Have we have any repeatable tests? Nope. Do I even need to ask if we have a logically coherent argument? That was rhetorical. No, I don't, because we don't. We have 67 plus logical fallacies, as well as 6 formal fallacies. And again, to remind you, formal fallacies just mean that the debater either doesn't know the rules of the debate or has forgotten them. In this case, I'm willing to bet he just doesn't know the rules of debate or doesn't care. In either case, he's acquired them, and that would be a penalty against him if we were keeping score, which I am. This is nothing but a bunch of straw men and poisoning of the well and, frankly, projection of the problems that he has onto his opponent. Had he been honest during this exchange, he might have incurred less logical fallacies, but he simply was not. Perhaps yet one day I shall find such an apologist. In the meantime, unless until we have a logically coherent argument, we must continue to be skeptical of the conclusions. I guess you could say that this apologist was really tacky. I'm going to attack his arguments. I'll just tack on this extra piece of video. What's my point? I'm going to push your pins. I've run out of tax jokes.